The What If series was an amazing opportunity for the MCU to take some of our favorite characters, alter their story ever so slightly, and have them go on a new adventure for us to watch. And for it to be the first season, I feel like they handled themselves fairly well, but with that being said, I do feel like there's some wasted potential, as well as sticking a little close to what they already know. If you've seen the whole series, in my opinion, the weakest episode is What If Thor Were an Only Child, and the strongest episode was ironically the episode following that, which is the What If Ultron won. But by the way the series ended, yeah, I feel like there could have been such a better way to end it. So sit back, relax,
and ponder the question, what if?
Now, one thing I think the series did really well, other than the animation style, is give each character and story its own unique little twist. And that's kind of the point of What If, right? And I found myself enjoying almost every episode for something different. The humor sometimes doesn't really land, but that's kind of a typical thing in a Marvel production nowadays. But one of my favorite parts of the entire series is when Thanos does this.
Get to the ship!
Are you crazy? You'll never take them yourself.
Not crazy. Mad.
Like, God! I'm such a nerd for stuff like that. Thanos is the mad titan, like, ooh! Like, that was pretty dope. I also like the premise of the What If the world lost its mightiest heroes. It was kind of a cool murder mystery sort of plot that I didn't really know who to expect the murderer to be, and it definitely wasn't who it actually turned out to be. No spoilers, just in case. So there were definitely some high points throughout the series. However, the ending is not one of those. Throughout the entire series, you think that you were just kind of peeking in on what the Watcher can see, and you're just seeing it through his eyes, but in true Marvel fashion, they have to do some sort of gathering of all the heroes to form a team in the end. They did it with the Avengers, they did the same thing in the Netflix shows. I know it wasn't Marvel, but they did it for the Defenders on the Netflix shows, and now they're doing it again with the What If series. Now, to understand why, we have to talk about why the second to last episode was my favorite, What If Ultron won. In this episode, Ultron was able to take over the body that in the main Marvel universe went to Vision, and then he set off every nuke on the planet, basically eradicating all life on the planet minus a few things, and then when Thanos shows up, he kills him real quick and in a hurry, takes the rest of the Infinity Stones, making him basically a god in that universe. Now this is when the episode gets spicy because he spawns an army of bots and tears through the universe, just decimating everything in his path, and then the Watcher watches his story unfold, Ultron sees him, and it freaks the Watcher out. Eventually, Ultron is able to break through the fabric of his reality and join where the Watcher is between universes where they fight and actually end up crashing through different universes throughout their battle, which was pretty cool. This episode shows the immense power of the Infinity Stones and how they can be used to the utmost extreme level, and I'll give it to the Watcher. He puts up one hell of a fight and they're going back and forth, and this is a cinematic ending for an episode. Ultron eats a galaxy. Like he eats a galaxy. That's insane. But the Watcher actually ends up getting away, and then as he gets away, he goes to look for other people to help form a team to then go back to defeat Ultron for the final episode, which is fine, totally understandable, but the last episode, the way they do the battle, does not do this episode justice. Now, during the final episode, the Watcher goes back to the Doctor Strange from episode 4, who kind of absorbed all those demonic entities and made his universe collapse in on itself. But that's who he went to first to make the team that was going to defeat the Ultra Ultron with the Infinity Stones. Now, him being the first member, that's pretty good. He's very strong. He's really good with magic. He's incredibly strong in this universe, or I guess in his universe, what's left of it. But then he gathers members from other episodes that are from the past, like the Black Widow, Star-Lord T'Challa, the Only Child Thor, which was a disaster of an episode in my opinion, Captain Carter, and Killmonger. And this is where the problem starts. If you take Doctor Strange out of the equation, how are people who can just basically punch and kick harder than your average human going to take down a godlike artificial intelligence with the ability to control all of reality itself? They can't. There's no real feasible way for it to happen in this episode if it's going to live up to the power level of the last episode. The way it actually ends is Captain Carter and Black Widow basically end up shooting an arrow with Arnim Zola's consciousness into Ultron, and that's basically how the fight ended. So they basically just beat him by shooting an arrow with a Nazi virus into Ultron and then basically just took him down from the inside. Before that, you had every other member doing basically nothing, or little to nothing, and then you had Doctor Strange doing the best he can, which was like 99% of the work of the team except for the last arrow shot. But while that fight was happening, I noticed the Watcher was nowhere to be seen. And I thought that it was kind of strange, no pun intended, but I thought it was kind of weird because he already broke the oath to not interfere. He already interfered once. So why was he not helping in this universally important, possibly multi-universally important fight? So my thoughts were, Maybe he was gonna go ask the Living Tribunal for help. And that would be incredible. That would be the best way you could possibly bring him in. Now, for those who don't know, the Living Tribunal is the second most powerful character to ever exist in Marvel Comics. Ever. Okay, yes, there were characters that were more powerful than him, but they were usually just villains or something that would show up for one story and be defeated or, casted out, whatever. So overall, the Living Tribunal is the second most powerful character to ever exist in Marvel. Now, he is not bound to one universe. He actually oversees the balance of the multiverse, which basically means that if anyone is becoming too powerful for their universe and that balance becomes a little skewed, he steps in and kind of shuts that crap down. He has given godlike powers to beings like the Silver Surfer. He's rendered stuff like the Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity Stones powerless, so he could easily snap his fingers, or just like a blink of the eye, and Ultron would end. This multiversal threat of Ultron would be over. Now, in the past, people have approached the Living Tribunal and asked for help with their universe, and he's turned them away for a number of reasons. So even a scene where the Watcher just asks for help and gets denied would at least give you a few key things. For one, it would give the Watcher something to do for the entire last fight, and it would explain why he was missing. And for two, the Living Tribunal would make his first appearance in the MCU. And that would be amazing. That would be incredible. But it's also a logical reason, right? Like, sure, Thanos had the Infinity Stones and he wiped out half of life, I guess for an arguably good reason in his somewhat twisted way, but Ultron is literally hopping through the multiverse, conquering one after another, just tearing through all of them, which would be a good reason for a judge of the multiverse to step in and say, hey, balance has been skewed a little bit, I'm gonna take over. Now, if you can remember, the Living Tribunal has actually been mentioned by name in a scene where Doctor Strange in the main Marvel universe is sparring with, I think it was Baron Mordo, and he says he's holding the staff of the Living Tribunal.
This is the staff of the Living Tribunal.
That means he's been mentioned by name and is known for at least a few of the MCU characters. They know he exists. So this would have been a perfect time to bring him in. And sure, not everyone's gonna know who the Living Tribunal is, so if you think the audience would get confused on who basically that is, just have the Watcher explain to the other characters who would probably not know who it is either. So he could explain it to the, Star-Lord, T'Challa, Black Widow, all of them, why he's stepping in, who he is, and yada yada. Now, I know this wouldn't give it such a grand ending if someone that was just so powerful could step in, snap his fingers, and it all be over. And I also understand beings like the Living Tribunal are basically just a plot device for writers to use when they kind of back themselves into a corner with an overpowered character that's a villain. But come on, you cannot go from Ultron biting a Milky Way like it's a Hot Pocket and just turn around and say he got beat by people who are throwing metal frisbees at him and shooting him with an arrow that has a Nazi scientist into his neck. Like, come on, dude, what? Does anyone else feel the same about this? Like, you can't just go from someone just controlling reality and then just getting beat by basically just like slightly stronger humans. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, Ultron is an artificial intelligence, but they kind of in episode 9 left out the intelligence part. So even though I liked the What If series for the most part overall, I feel like the ending kind of spoiled my overall feelings about the show. You built up this great big baddie and you kind of just let him go down like a chump. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me. Those are just my thoughts, but what do you guys think? Do you think that the series ended well enough for what it did? Or do you think it could have a better ending? Do you think you could think of one that's better than the one that I created? Just let me know down below and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.